Café wall illusion. Imagine a wall made of bricks, where each row of bricks is shifted a little bit to the side. Even though the rows are straight lines, they look like they're tilting or bending. This happens because of the way the bricks, or tiles, are arranged and how their edges have different colors. Our eyes get tricked into thinking there's a slope when there really isn't one. It's like when you see heat waves on the road during a sunny day, and it looks like the road is wavy even though it's actually flat. The Penrose Triangle. The Penrose Triangle is a shape that looks like it could exist if you just look at it quickly, but if you try to imagine it as a real 3D object, it doesn't make sense. It's called an impossible object because each part of the triangle seems to be connected in a way that should work. But it can't exist in the real world. It's like trying to connect 3 sticks in a triangle where each stick has to be both in front and behind the other stick at the same time, which is impossible. Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love. Rubin's vase. This illusion shows us how our brain decides what to see when there are 2 possibilities. You might see a vase in the middle of the image, or 2 faces looking at each other. What's interesting is that you can only see one of these at a time, even though both images are there. It's like when you're trying to decide if a cloud looks more like an elephant or a car, you can switch back and forth between seeing one shape or the other. The Kanizsa Triangle. The Kanizsa Triangle is a cool trick where you think you see a triangle that isn't really there. It's made using 3 Pac-Man shapes facing towards each other, and your brain fills in the gaps, creating the edges and a bright white triangle. It's like when you can see a complete picture in a book even though some of the page is torn off. Your brain just fills in the missing parts. The Ames Room. Imagine a room that looks normal when you peek through a special hole, but if you were to step inside, you'd find that it's actually shaped very weirdly. One corner is much farther back and lower than the other, making one person standing in one corner look like a giant compared to someone in the opposite corner. It's like playing with a camera's zoom to make one person look way bigger than another, even though they're the same size. The Müller-Lyer Illusion. This illusion is about 2 lines that look different in length because of the arrows on their ends. If one line has arrows pointing out and the other has arrows pointing in, the one with the arrows pointing in seems shorter. But actually, both lines are the same length. It's like when you're drawing a sun, and the sunbeams make the circle of the sun look smaller or bigger, depending on how you draw them. The hearing illusion. In this illusion, you see 2 straight lines that look like they're bowing outwards, but they are actually perfectly straight and parallel. This happens because of the background pattern that has lines radiating out like the rays of the sun, which messes with our sense of perspective. It's similar to how a straight road can look curved when hills or other patterns on the ground change how we view it. Ebbinghaus Illusion. This one is about how we see the size of circles. If you put a small circle around a big circle, the big circle looks even bigger. But if you surround the same big circle with lots of tiny circles, it suddenly looks smaller. It's like when you stand next to a really tall person and feel super short, but if you stand next to a shorter person, you feel taller. Hermann grid illusion. When you look at a grid of black squares separated by white lines, you might see gray spots at the corners where the white lines meet. But when you try to look directly at these gray spots, they disappear. It's like trying to see a small bug out of the corner of your eye, but when you look right at it, it's not there. Rotating snakes illusion. This is a fun one where it looks like a picture is moving, but it's actually still. The circles in the image have patterns that make your eyes think there's motion when everything is stationary. It's like when you stare at waves in the ocean for a long time, and then look away and it still feels like everything else is waving too. Zöllner Illusion. In the Zöllner Illusion, you see lines that are perfectly parallel, but they don't look parallel. They seem to be slanting or leaning because of the short diagonal lines that cross them. It's like when you put stripes on a shirt at an angle. It can make the whole shirt look tilted even though it's straight. Chubb Illusion. This illusion deals with how we see brightness. If you have a light-colored object surrounded by lots of darkness, it appears brighter than it really is. Conversely, if the object is in a light environment, it seems darker. It's like wearing a grey shirt on a sunny day and thinking it's lighter than when you wear it on a cloudy day. The dress. This famous illusion is about a photo of a dress that some people see as blue and black, while others see it as white and gold. It happens because people's brains process the colors in the photo differently, depending on how they interpret the lighting in the picture. It's like when you can't decide if a paint color is green or blue because the light in the room makes it look different. Adelson's checker shadow illusion. In this illusion, two squares on a checkered pattern look like they're different shades because of the shadow cast by another object. But if you isolate the squares, you'll see they're actually the same color. It's similar to seeing your shadow on the ground on a sunny day. Your shadow looks darker than the ground around it, but it's really just a lack of sunlight. Fraser spiral illusion. This one tricks you into seeing a spiral, but it's really a series of concentric circles. The background pattern makes the circles seem like they twist around. It's like looking at a spiral staircase from above, where it seems like the steps wind around even though they just go straight up. Motion Aftereffect illusions. If you stare at something moving in one direction for a while, like a waterfall, and then look away, stationary objects might seem to move in the opposite direction. This happens because your eyes get used to seeing motion in one direction, and when it stops, your brain thinks things are moving the other way. It's like spinning around and then stopping suddenly. You feel like everything is still spinning. Jastrow illusion. This illusion shows two identical shapes that look different in size because of how they are placed next to each other. If one shape is lower than the other, it looks larger. It's like when you see a road that looks wider near you and narrower in the distance. Dragon illusion. A flat paper dragon is cut and folded in such a way that when you move around it, the dragon's head seems to follow you. This happens because of the clever way it's designed to trick your eyes into seeing a 3D shape where there isn't one. It's like when a painting's eyes seem to follow you around the room. The impossible fork. This is another impossible object, where a drawing of a fork has three cylindrical prongs that mysteriously turn into two rectangles. It's impossible in 3D space, like the Penrose Triangle, where things don't add up, creating a puzzle for your eyes. The Sander parallelogram. This illusion makes a parallelogram look like a distorted trapezoid. The lines are drawn in such a way that our brains misinterpret the angles and lengths, making it seem skewed. It's like when you look at a square tile floor from an angle, and the tiles look like they're different shapes.